Welcome back to The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. Last time we entered the Gerudo fortress and got through it, officially becoming a member of the Gerudo, and in this part we're going to be playing an archery minigame, one that is actually pretty difficult. Apparently this Gerudo knows that we stole our horse. Anyway, the goal of the game is to get a certain amount of points with 20 shots of your arrows. You'll go around twice. So you're going to go forward and then turn around and go back. And by shooting a bunch of things, you get points. For example, these pots here each give 100 points. By getting in the center of the targets, you get 100 points. By getting close to the center, you get 60. And by getting pretty far from it, you get 30. The first threshold that you need to reach is pretty generous. It's only 1,000 points. And you pretty much get 700 free points if you hit all the pots. The thing to remember about this minigame is that you don't want to shoot where things are going to be, you want to shoot where they are, because it's not that everything's moving around you, it's that you're moving. That was kind of the misconception that I had when I was first playing the game. But after getting 1,000 points, she will give you a piece of heart, completing our next heart container. And I don't skip the dialogue here because I am baffled that I was able to get so high a score, because I think this minigame is actually really hard. It actually took me 4 tries to beat it, although only 3 in the context of this part, because the first time I tried it I got an abysmal score. I only got like 800 points, and then I like reloaded my my restore point, because usually when I end a part I make a restore point so that way it's easy for me to get to the next part if I'm not recording on the same day. This is my 3rd try, and another thing to remember about this minigame is that if you don't think that you're gonna get a good hit, then don't waste your arrows, because the limited arrows actually really debilitates you when it comes to this game. If your shots aren't going to be true, you're going to get a bad score, and, you know, that's not good for the minigame. This large target right here is probably the best one for getting big points, because you don't have to get it exactly in the center to get 100 points, you need to get it just really close to it. And since, you know, the center radius is larger on that bigger one, it's easy to get the 100 points. For beating it with 1,500 points, you get the biggest quiver. You can now hold 50 arrows. You can tell that I did it 3 times during this session because my rupee count is at 440. Each play of the game costs 20 rupees. Thanks to that bigger quiver, my arrows got refilled, and I did waste quite a few of them, basically rapid firing at one of the Gerudos for one of the small keys to save on the carpenters. Now that we have the Gerudo membership card, we can actually talk to the lady at the top of this ladder here, because this gate is how we're going to be getting to the next temple. Or, I guess next isn't the correct word. The temple that I'm going to be going to can be either your 4th or 5th one, if you're doing it in the way that the game wants you to do it. But of course, I am a rebel, so I'm going to do it 3rd. I really do think that the non-linearity of this game is lost on a lot of people. Like the fire temple, I could have done 1st, but I'm gonna do it 4th. Like you can do it 1st, 2nd, 3rd, or 4th, and thus the forest temple you can do 1st or 2nd. Water can be done 3rd or 4th. The one that we're going to can be done 3rd, 4th, or 5th, and then the last one can be done 4th or 5th. Like that leaves a lot of options in my opinion. And it's quite fun to do it in a way that the game doesn't intend you to do it, even though, you know, it doesn't require items from a lot of other dungeons in order to beat, which actually kind of makes me think that the game does intend you to, you know, not follow the beaten path. As for getting through this wasteland area, you need the long shot or the item from the last temple that we're going to do in order to get across. You also need the item from the last temple in order to talk to that guy over there, but all he really does is sell bomb shoes, which I don't really need. We're actually going to be getting Bombchus pretty soon anyway, so it doesn't really matter. What you need to do here is follow the flags. If you keep, following this trail, you'll eventually end up at a big sort of shrine. It kind of looks like a shrine. It doesn't really have any purpose besides a gold sculptula and a few rupees. Although it does lead to progressing through this desert wasteland. If you go off of the beaten path in this area, then you're gonna be basically restarting. Kind of like with the Lost Woods. There is a gold sculptula in this room, along with a couple of unlit chests. You can either use Din's Fire, or, as I'm going to show off here, you can use the fire arrows. They basically do what arrows that have gone through torches do. They set fire to whatever's in their path. They don't do any extra damage to enemies, at least in this game. In the next game they actually do double damage, but in this one they do as much damage as a regular arrow does. Lighting them both will give you a chest with 50 rupees in it, and these pots over here contain some magic jars, so wasting magic to get the torches lit is not that big of a deal. Although the price for lighting the torches isn't that great either. But, I did waste some rupees playing that, the archery minigame, so it is a welcome prize. In order to proceed from here on out, you need to have at least beat the forest temple and the water temple, so the long shot to get across that big chasm over there, and the forest temple so you could go back in time and use the Eye of Truth, aka the Lens of Truth. This big Poe will appear, and you can follow it down the path. Again, if you go off of where the Poe allows, then you're going to be restarting the area. But it isn't that big of a deal. There's some leeway with it. There are going to be enemies that appear though, but they also aren't that big of a deal because they don't really knock you over or anything like that, so there's no danger of going off the path if you have to face enemies. That right there, that was dangerous. You do not want to talk to Navi at all during this part because that'll turn off the Lens of Truth. If you do talk to Navi by accident like I did, just flick it back on and start following the Poe again. If you stand still in this area without wearing the item that you get from the 5th temple that we're going to be doing, you'll actually sink into the sand, which kinda sucks because that slows down your movement for a little while and then you can't go forward. You're actually forced to sink into the sand for this cutscene here. You can see Link slowly getting shorter as we look at this desert colossus here. If you do sink into it, it's not that big of a deal. All that really happens is you have to walk a little bit before you can start making some more movement. And as long as you're constantly rolling, you're not going to sink anymore. There's a cracked wall here, so we're going to bomb it. And behind it, we'll have something special, though something that I don't really use very much. It's another Great Fairies fountain. And this one has red walls, which means we're going to be getting a new spell. The last of the spells, if you look at the inventory menu. The lighting in this area kind of makes it look like Link is wearing the green tunic again. But that doesn't have anything to do with anything. This is the last Great Fairy of Magic. Although, maybe it's the same fairy just at 3 different fountains. Because they're all named the Great Fairy of Magic. The other fairies have different names, like the one we got the spin attack from was like the Great Fairy of Power or something like that. But this is the final magic spell. It is a defensive spell. This one taking its name from the goddess of wisdom. It's Nayru's Love, or Nayru's Love, I guess. Compared to the other 2 spells, it actually takes up the most magic of the 3, and of the elemental arrows too. It takes up quite a bit of magic, and it's not as useful as you'd think. Basically, what it does is you create a protective barrier around yourself. With that barrier up, you don't take any damage, but the problem is you'll still get knocked back by enemy attacks. So if it's a particularly strong enemy that can do a swipe at you and make you go flying, you're not going to be, you're not going to be safe from that, especially if they knock you into like a pit or something like that. But as you can see, I'm running around and I'm not getting hurt, even though Link is visibly, you know, showing signs of fatigue by grunting and, you know, keeling over. And look at how much magic meter that took up. It was more than half. You also cannot use magic while something else that uses the magic meter is in effect. So I'm going to try doing a charged spin attack here, but it just comes out as a regular spin attack. This is also true of the Lens of Truth. If you're using it and you want to shoot a fire arrow or something like that, you got to turn the Lens of Truth off before you can use the fire arrow. And also it stops you from rapid firing elemental arrows. So say you want to shoot the fire arrow but you missed your target or something like that, you have to wait until the effect dissipates, because it still counts as you using magic as long as the fire is still on screen, and then you'll be able to, you know, use magic again. If you play the Song of Storms near Gossip Stones, instead of a normal fairy coming out, like if you use, say, Zelda's Lullaby near Gossip Stone, there will be a big fairy, and the big fairies give you both health and magic. So it's a good way to refill your magic if you have to. This temple is unique in that each of these big snake signs here says that you need to come back with the heart of a child in order to progress in the past, and come with the power of silver from the past in order to progress as an adult. Kinda hints at this dungeon requiring you to be both an adult and a child in order to progress through it. However, there is not a way for young Link to get to here normally. The Gerudo fortress is blocked off by the Gerudo in the past. There's like one standing in front of a gate and a couple patrolling around. So Sheik is going to give us the Requiem of Spirit, another Ocarina song that will send us pretty close to the temple. A requiem, I believe, is a song meant to put the dead at peace, which is kinda unfitting considering what the fifth temple is. You'd think a requiem would be the song for that one, but instead it's the one for this spirit temple. And it took me a bit to remember which buttons were associated with which C buttons, because the way I have my controller set up is basically X, Y, L, and R are basically replacing functions of the C left, right, up, and down buttons that would be on a regular controller, because using the right stick is kind of weird. I don't like it. I feel like it gets items wrong sometimes. Like, I'll want to use the arrows or something, but I'll take out the ocarina. Sheik, being the enigmatic person that he is, decides to leave this time via sandstorm, which is a lot more interesting than the normal use of Deku Nuts to blind me and run away. We're going to be doing what the temple is telling us to do, and return here with the pure heart of a child. Although we are going to be doing a couple things beforehand, mostly having to do with side quests, because while you're a child, you have access to a certain item that you don't have access to as an adult. That item, I don't know why I'm not being like, well, we already know what the item is, we have it. It's the magic beans. I don't know why I'm trying to hide it. But with the magic beans, we're going to finally show off what you can do with them. We're going to be going to a couple of different areas that you can only access with the Ocarina warp songs as a child, because, I don't know, there's some reason that you can't go to there without the Ocarina songs. Also, I'm showing off that you can't equip the empty bottle that you turn the claim check into, because it's technically an adult-only item. Anyway, we're going to be going to Death Mountain Crater first, because there's a magic bean soil thing there. And in using that, we'll be able to get a piece of heart that we can't get normally. As you've seen before, I am trying to avoid using as many magic beans as possible, but you're gonna have to use 2 if you want to get all the pieces of heart in this game. At least, you're gonna have to use 2 that I know of. Obviously, we can't stay here for long, so I'm also going to be warping back to the Spirit Temple. There's actually another bit of soil there too, so I'm gonna use that one as well with the magic beans so that I can make another one. By one, I mean make another plant there so that when we're an adult we can ride the platform and go around and collect heart pieces and such. I think I did say that there are usually ways to get fairies around temples most of the time. Like in the forest temple, or near the forest temple, there's the fairy fountain up the ladder, down the stairs, like opposite of the temple's entrance. And then in the water temple, there's gossip stones and such that you can use to get fairies out of them. Regular fairies being obtained by playing like normal songs, and not the Song of Storms, because that one gives you the big fairy. But you can make your own fairy fountain right here. There's this little oasis, I guess we can call it. And if you step onto this platform that Navi seems to be very interested in, and play the Song of Storms, you can actually fill up this little lake, I guess. It's not really a lake. It's very much smaller than a lake. If you fill it up with the Song of Storms, then there will be a bunch of fairies that come out of it. And so, you made your own fairy fountain. It is context sensitive. You can only do it while standing on top of that stone over there. And if you do, like, enter the dungeon and then go back out, it will go away, so you'll need to play the Song of Storms again. But now we're actually going to be entering the dungeon. We're not gonna get through it in this part. In fact, we're not really entering it. We're just kind of hanging out in the lobby with this person over here. This is Naburu. Naburu is the kind of second in command to Ganondorf, but she's not really a fan of what he does. You kind of have to tell her that you're not really doing anything in the dungeon. Like, if you say that you're looking for anything, like you want to find the sage or something like that, she'll kind of deny you. But if you say that you're not doing anything, she'll ask you for a favor. She explains that while she is a thief, she isn't as evil as Ganondorf, because Ganondorf apparently steals and kills from women and children as well, even though every like 100 years a male Gerudo is born. And the weird thing is, I guess, that the Gerudo race only consists of women, so how are they supposed to reproduce is the question that most people would ask. There is a gossip stone near the Temple of Time that says that the Gerudo often come to Castletown in search of boyfriends, so they probably, you know, use males from Hyrule, like actual Hylian males, and then whoever's born is going to be a Gerudo woman. That favor that she wanted us to do was to go into the this half of the temple and get the silver gauntlets, which can only be worn by an adult, so she wants us to get them for her so that she can use them and ruin Ganondorf's plans. This is, you know, quite brave to go against Ganondorf, even though he's supposed to be your leader. So we're gonna help her out. We will crawl through this tiny hole and get the treasure that's inside, and then give it to her. Apparently, she's gonna do something really nice for us. But we're not gonna go into the temple truly during this part. Next time we'll enter the child half of the Spirit Temple.